We begin in uncharted territory for planet Earth. Yes, it's hot, record-shattering hot, not just in your city or state or even in the United States, but globally. Yesterday marked the unofficial record for the hottest day on the planet, breaking the previous record, which was set just earlier this week. Now, that's according to data analyzed by the University of Maine's Climate Reanalyzer, used by climate scientists to gauge worldwide conditions. Now, records have been broken in Western Canada, while cities in China have sweltered in more than a week-long heat wave. Broad swaths of the U.S. have also been baking under an extreme heat wave, particularly across the Southwest, where Phoenix has seen a week of temperatures above 110 degrees, and El Paso 21 days above 100. Today, some 19 million Americans remain under heat alerts. But the climate crisis facing the planet goes beyond record high stretches lasting days or even weeks. The European Union's Copernicus Climate Change Service reported last month was the world's hottest June on record, while parts of the U.S. saw their warmest January to April ever, according to NOAA. Now, in a report published Thursday, the director of climate services at the World Meteorological Association warned that, quote, "We are in uncharted territory. This is worrying news for the planet." Now, despite scientists' warnings as a public policy matter, climate change often faces political roadblocks. In his State of the Union, President Biden urged Americans to work together to confront the issue.
Let's face reality. The climate crisis doesn't care if you're in a red or blue state. It's an existential threat. We have an obligation, not to ourselves, but to our children and grandchildren, to confront it. I'm proud of how America, at last, is stepping up to the challenge.
But a Pew poll from last year shows that while more than half of Americans do agree that climate change is a major threat, there is a stark partisan divide on the issue. To break all this down now, I'm joined by NBC News meteorologist Bill Cairns. So, Bill, break down this heat we're seeing across the country and the world right now. Is it as bad as it seems?
To climatologists, no. It's exactly what they've been saying and shouting from the rooftops for many years. Just all of a sudden, now we have the data in front of us, and people are going, oh, wait, you were right. It actually is happening. So let me just explain where we are and why it's happening right now, and then where we're going to go from here. So you just showed this graph at the top of the show. It just shows that this is the current temperature of the globe, the global average. It includes everywhere, from Antarctica to the North Pole, and it's about 63 degrees. So most people are like, oh, what's the big deal? It's 63 degrees. My house is at 70 degrees. Well, that's the global temperature average, and it's factoring in winter in the southern hemisphere also. So that's why it's only 63. It's not 90 or something crazy like that. So what we have done in the last 4 days is each and every day we've gotten a little bit warmer. So Monday we broke the record, and then Tuesday we broke the record. Wednesday actually tied Tuesday, and then Thursday broke the record from Wednesday. And I wouldn't doubt if today breaks the record from tomorrow. Typically in the northern hemisphere, we set the hottest temperature for the globe end of July, beginning of August. So we're going to have many headlines like this for the next 3 to 4 weeks. Eventually, we'll peak, and then we'll actually start cooling things down. And the reason that happens, because it's a globe, is there's a lot more land areas in the northern hemisphere than the southern hemisphere. That's why we always peak the global temperature during the northern hemisphere summer. And 2016 was the last time this happened. Now, why is that important? That was the last strong El Nino, and that's what we're heading into now. So we're going to get a lot of these temperature spikes, a lot of these records throughout the next year and a half, because if we're heading into a strong El Nino, I can almost guarantee you, I'll bet you a steak dinner on it, that next year will be the warmest year ever on this planet because of El Nino. El Nino is a bigger driver of the climate influence than, say, what we're doing with our greenhouse emissions, polluting our planet. what we do is we raise the temperature 1 or 2 degrees. El Nino can change it even more than that. So that's why with El Nino, we're going to get stuff like this. Last night, the hottest night ever recorded in Africa, it only dropped to 103 degrees in Algeria. Quebec, 94 degrees, all-time hot. El Paso's about to break their record for the consecutive streak of 100-degree days. I can tell you next week, Phoenix has a chance of breaking their record of 110-degree streaks. And you have to remember, the oceans actually contain most of our heat. It has a higher heat capacity, so it absorbs the heat more than the land. And so the North Atlantic right now is on fire. I mean, it's the warmest that we've ever recorded by a long shot. So that's something that one reason, if you're hearing that the hurricane season may be a little worse than expected, it's because that's the fuel for the storms. And then this is the El Nino, this little red stripe here, and that's what's really going to be driving things as we go throughout the next, through winter and even into next year. So we just got done with 3 years in a row of La Nina. So a lot of people are like, oh, well, La Nina was cooling. We haven't seen a lot of record heat. That's because the oceans were keeping us cooler in a natural cycle. But that is now flipping to this warm pattern. And when you get a huge chunk of the Pacific warmer than it should be, that is when we're going to see all of these crazy records coming. And by the way, you're talking about, the political aspect of this. Go back and watch President Obama's second inauguration speech, how many times he mentions climate and climate change and fighting it and changing it. This isn't a new idea, just not a lot has been done about it.
And it seems, Bill, that the difference was we used to talk about it as something that would happen a long time from now, and now it seems as though we're dealing with the reality of it in this current moment. Is that a fair assessment?
It's been, if you look back at how much things have changed, how much have we warmed the planet since the pre-industrial revolution? It's only 2 degrees. So it's not something that you and I can even witness. It's happening in slow motion. But compared to climate changing on this planet, which usually takes like 20,000 years, we've done that in under 200 years. So in the climate sense, it's happening really fast. It's really hard for people to divide weather versus climate. I'm sure you've heard a million times people say, well, this spring wasn't that bad. And I can tell you, June was the hottest June ever on this planet. But in the United States, in the lower 48, it was like an average June. It was actually cool in many areas. We're still so influenced by what we see. It's really hard to just believe the scientists without putting your own experiences into this whole big puzzle, this master puzzle piece that we're putting together.
All right, well, thank you for breaking it down scientifically. Bill Cairns, we appreciate it.